Welcome back, everyone, to the Waywyrd Sisters podcast, the podcast where we talk about the divine feminine. Just a trend or something more substantial?
Hopefully it's more substantial. It's fairly ancient. Uh
Yeah, but it seems to be something people are tossing around a lot these days without any real understanding of what it actually means.
This is true. And I was thinking about that too with the first episode, the tangents that I got on made it sound like it was just about motherhood and or that's all that we would be talking about. So we're going to dig into that more today. I've also realized how many times we use the term dig into. So we should think of the
I
difference.
noticed that too.
And how many times I say kind of to like
Yeah,
backpedal and soften what I'm
same.
saying. Yeah, that's bullshit. So I'm going to be working on that. So before we begin looking into the divine feminine, what are you working on this week personally?
Well, I had a bit of an epiphany, sort of. A baby epiphany. A babe epiphany.
Wait,
And some
there should be some combination of infant and epiphany.
Infimphany.
Infant epiphany?
Welcome to the Waywyrd Sisters podcast, the podcast where we talk about making up new words.
Or we do make up new words.
So what I arrived at this past week, it's been an interesting week. I start my Muggle job on Monday, and so I thought, okay, I have a lot of things that I need to finish up before I start that new phase of my life and have a more of a regimented schedule. So I had all kinds of things I wanted to catch up on, and I took a lot of naps.
Right?
Which usually to me is a sign that I'm overwhelmed, which is kind of an understatement. So a big part of what I have had to acclimate to with this move is that I'm pretty much completely alone. I mean, there is a gentleman that I spend time with from time to time, but that's not a consistent daily thing. I do have friends like you that I can connect with and talk to if I need to. And I absolutely do. I've made it more of a practice to reach out when I feel that I need to connect. But then things are starting to come up and unearth that I thought I had dealt with already, but apparently not. And what has come to my attention is that the entirety of my life for the last 35 years, I've been mostly alone. So I'm struggling with that because obviously because it has been a lifelong thing, I'm good at the solitary life, but what I've realized is I don't actually like it. There is a comfort in solitude, and being an empathic person, I do have a hard time being around a lot of people for an extended period of time, and I need to recharge and recuperate. But on a day-to-day basis, shuffling around my house, working and being busy, distracting myself from the aloneness. I won't say it's getting to me, but I will say that it's something coming up, and I feel it's not as important to accept it. I do accept it, and I have made peace with it up to a point, but I think it's coming to my attention for me to address and say, hey, just because it's been this way for this long, why can't that change? So at this point where I'm at is I've identified a common thread, a lifelong common thread, and I'm trying to sit with that and unpack that and see where the rough spots are that's really sticking with me, and refine that and move forward. And how does one change that feeling?
The feeling of not liking being alone?
Yeah, of realizing, hey, this has been my whole life. I don't actually like it.
So how would you change it?
Exactly. That's where I'm at.
Well, obviously, if you don't like it, then I wouldn't personally work on learning to like it. Really. I mean, if there's an unhealthy reason that you don't like it, then obviously look into that. And I know you would, but I don't know, like what steps can you take to not be so alone type thing?
Mm-hmm.
If you crave, because it's natural, I think, especially for women and especially as humans, it's natural to crave community and companionship and stuff like that. So,
and I guess that's where I'm at with it, because we do crave community in a family type of unit. Yet in the society that we're in right now, everybody's connected through social media. It's so impersonal. And I think that has exacerbated my identifying of, oh, because my only means of contact for my closest friends and the people that I love most is through
yes.
and our podcast, which is it's amazing. I'm so grateful for that capability, because back in the day it would have been handwritten letters, which I think we need to bring those back. There's something beautiful about that.
Agreed.
What are you working on?
For me this week, there's been a couple of things. Some things would take more backstory than we have time for. So it is funny that you mentioned your overwhelm. And that's what I noticed today too. Like, there's a very strict and specific diet that I have been put on for my current health issue, and trying to correct it through diet instead of more drastic measures. And so I've got that going, where I have to like completely change my diet, like vegan. I have to be vegan today. And for those of you that are vegan or have tried it or whatever, you kind of know how hard it is to kind of get on that train. And so doing that all of a sudden has been a lot. There's a lot going on in my life in general. We've talked a little about my living situation. You'll notice that the background of if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll notice that my background is not the same as last week. And so life is pretty big right now. There's a lot changing in my personal situation and living situation, work situation. Like, all of my situations are all at the doorstep right now, which is wonderful. And there's a lot of choices to make and things like that, but it's also very big and very overwhelming. And so I've noticed that there's certain aspects of it that I can't control, like living situations there. I mean, I'm taking steps towards that, and it is changing, but it's going to be about 6 weeks to 2 months before it's actually settled. So there's that. Like, I can't do anything about that more than I have already right now. I can't do anything different about certain other aspects of my life. And so the things that I can control, I'm sabotaging the fuck out of. So that leaves eating well for my body and for my health. I'm like sabotaging the fuck out of it, like bad, which is so stupid and so reckless and dangerous for my health right now. But so I'm working through, like, wait a minute, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, this is serious shit that I'm being really silly about. And so, but digging into it and understanding, like, oh, holy shit, it's because that is the only aspect of my life right now that I can control. And I've been told to do it this way. And there's other aspects of my life that I have been presented with a situation, not necessarily things that I chose for myself. And so it kind of is like, this is how you are doing it, or this is how that aspect of your life is right now, and you can't change it. Whatever. I'm rambling now, but like, essentially the diet part is the only part I can control. And so, but it's also the most crucial part of my life right now. So I am working on calming down different areas of my life to kind of bring down the level of overwhelm, because that is something that I do. Like, if I get to a certain point of overwhelm, I shut down. Like you, I will just take naps. Like, I have so much to do. A nap. And so that is something that I've struggled with for a long time, and I don't want it anymore. So I'm working on that also. And as a segue, wanking helps anxiety. What is your number for this week so far?
I think I'm at 5.
5.
Which is pretty healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little behind, but I'm definitely feeling more frisky. I tried to squeeze one more in before we started recording.
Lean back, because you said I'm feeling frisky, and your shirt says, send nudes. The rest
Please
of her
don't send nudes, actually.
Oh, yeah. It is spelled Noods and has a bowl of ramen on it also, to put that in context for you. We don't want nudes. Okay, yeah, I'm at 9 so far for the week.
Nice.
And it is that friskiness. I am ovulating this week, which makes you like naturally more frisky,
Ugh.
which makes sense because if you're ovulating, if the point of sex is procreation, it would make sense. I don't think that's the point of it. I'm going to argue that someday, but
Yes.
not this day.
So I have a question. Last week or last episode, we talked about licking armpits. Did you ask the boy if he could lick his armpit?
Like my notes are on an envelope that I found. Literally, I was just about to say, I'm like, actually, the armpit licking. Yes, we were taking a shower, and he had washed, like he had scrubbed down with soap. And I was like, oh, I forgot. I'm supposed to ask you if I can lick your armpit. And he's like, okay. Like, get in there. And so I'm like, meh. I'm like, that tastes like, it tasted like armpit. It tasted like BO. I'm like,
Oh.
so I like grabbed the soap and like re-scrubbed it. He's like, I already washed them. I'm like, I don't know. Like it's super potent. We were showering because he was super sweaty. Anyway, so I did lick his armpit. It tasted like an armpit. He's like, yeah, but you have to let me lick your armpit. I'm like,
Oh, okay.
but I haven't shaved. It will be stubbly. So go ahead, I guess. And so it was weird. And we talked about it. We tried to process through like, okay, this is weird, but we're like super comfortable with each other. So
Yeah.
it was like, why is it weird? And it's because we were just like taking a shower and being silly. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We would need to try it again if we were like in the act of and we were actually
Mm-hmm.
aroused and like into
In the context of.
right of being aroused anyway. So I can't really say. I did keep my word. I did lick his armpit so that I could report back to you, but I feel like that wasn't complete. I feel like I dropped the ball a little bit. Well, not dropped the ball. Like I got more information. Like we would need to try it in the right setting. So it's on the docket to try again if I remember to do that. Come here. So
Come here, give me that armpit.
I know. So this week we are talking about the divine feminine. We wanted to go into a little bit about what that means. Definition-wise, it's kind of a loose definition because there's so many religions and belief systems that kind of use that term.
And I wanted to find just kind of a general definition or something interesting. And I found this article. It was published on Bustle in 2017. And I actually really liked it. And essentially, it's the divine feminine represents the connection to the part of your consciousness responsible for nurturing, intuition, and empathy, regardless of your gender. The aspect of the self associated with creation, intuition, community, sensuality, and that's feeling of sensuality, not thinking, and collaboration. And that really, for me, that connected with how I associate with the divine feminine, that sense of community and coming together, and really what you and I want to create. Yeah.
What we're craving currently. So I do want to touch on the first episode when we talked about the divine feminine, and we really only touched on like motherhood and that being a legitimate part of feminine, like the female, and women being pitted against each other. That's not really what the divine feminine is about. Those are things like more women's issues that we do want to discuss. And so when we talk about the divine feminine, I want our version of that, or at least what's represented on this show, to kind of to encompass the feminine, women, essentially. Men have the divine feminine also, like everybody does. We have divine masculine as well. We want to, it might be a misnomer a bit to talk about women's issue, like women in general. When we say divine feminine, that might be not the best term for it, but it is still the divinity of the female. And I feel like there's a lot going on in the world where women don't feel powerful because again, those things that we're naturally good at, like motherhood, homemaking, these things that we have a natural penchant towards. And maybe it is societal conditioning, but I do think that there's, because of the even a description of divine feminine being more nurturing and empathic and community based, and like putting the needs of the community before your own, is a very feminine thing. Men do it too. So there are aspects of the divine feminine in what we will be talking about, but the stuff going on in society where women want power, and so they're shifting more towards being masculine for that power. And so they're like climbing the corporate ladder, and which is awesome, and I have no problem with that at all. I'm not trying to make women wear skirts again instead of pants. Like, that is not what I'm getting at. But I feel like part of that for some people is because women feel their power. We're naturally super fucking powerful, but especially in America, it feels like power is represented in like workplace success, almost like success looking this way, this specific way. And so women are going after that to reclaim their power. And part of my personal journey is to dig into the natural roles of the female energy. And so if it is motherhood, how, like, what is the powerful version of that? Like, mothers are powerful, no, like, but there's so many mothers that completely lose their identity in their motherhood. Like, oh, I'm just my kid's mom. Like, I'm Kat, mother of two, which I'm not. I have one child, but and that is their first identity. Like, that's their descriptor. And so there needs to be a balance where women don't lose their identity to their children, but also being a mother should also in its own way be recognized for how powerful and amazing it is. There are a lot of issues surrounding women that we wanted to discuss and explore that will be underneath the divine feminine umbrella. It's really bringing divinity back to being female in our version of it.
Mm-hmm. And you said something that stuck out for me. I think the importance is we're focusing on the divine feminine in terms of the energy of it, less so much like as a tangible thing.
Yeah. And I mean, the things that we have on our list to discuss under the divine feminine category, this is why it feels more like a misnomer. Like, I want to get into like menstrual cups, like things about just being a woman. And so, yeah, it is kind of a misnomer, I think, but there's still so much spirituality in it that we'll be discussing as well. So don't hold us to it. I don't know. We can just call it a fancy title if you are more comfortable. Because there's this whole podcast is about the divinity of women anyway, their sexuality, their mentality, their magic ability, and all of those things. So the first episode's published, so we can't go back on it now. That's just the name of the topic. So one of the interesting things too is like the yin and yang symbol, it represents female and masculine energy. And so the yin is the more serene and I don't want to say subdued. That's not what I mean, but it is that more serene, peaceful, laid back energy that's to do with, like, the feminine is to do with empathy and intuition and emotion. Emotion is the main energy of the divine feminine in my experience, and then logic and knowledge is the main energy of the masculine, and that kind of like going out into the world to change the world.
Well, I really liked the definition that I found in that article. One of our friends on Facebook posted one time about not liking the use of referring to women as goddesses, like it's, you know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool. I don't take anything personally in terms of what people do or don't like.
Can I clarify real quick?
Yes.
The reason that she didn't like goddess or priestess is that it was starting with a man's title and then kind of essentially dumbing it down to fit a woman. Instead of just a woman being able to be a priest or a god, they had to be like a subclass of those
Hmm.
things. And that was her reasoning behind not liking those terms.
Yes. Me personally, this will delve in a little bit into my beliefs, um, which actually I found once you and I started bridging that gap between your background and my background and finding we actually believed a lot more similarly than we originally thought, is that when we're born, we are given part of, the creator. And so I mentioned in our first episode having abilities and growing up with abilities and understanding that those had to come from somewhere. And those are things associated with divine beings or deities. So being human is amazing because we are born, we're we all have the potential to be demigods. And so that's where my part of my belief in the divine feminine and what it represents lies, in that we all have the potential, or we all have the potential to connect with those more like supernatural gifts and things. And the divine feminine is associated with a lot of those. So connecting with that aspect of yourself can unlock a lot of those natural abilities that we're all born with.
True. Whereas a lot of those abilities are, is this is what you're saying, like a lot of those abilities are directly linked to the feminine energy.
Yes.
Because yeah, so I've found in my experience and in my studies for my own personal growth that the rocket fuel for manifesting is emotion. So when if you guys have read The Secret or books like that, it talks about sitting there and building up the feeling of having what you're asking for or what you're trying to manifest. Like, what would it feel like to be driving the sports car that I wish I had? And so you'd sit there, and the point of that is that exercise is to get yourself in your creative energy, which is the feminine, which is the emotion of feeling how you would feel when you have what you are asking for. And so emotion is like a superpowered tool for manifesting. And so when you as a woman are told that you are overly emotional and we're made to feel like we need to keep our emotions in check or there's something wrong with us because we're emotional, like bitch, that is our superpower. If we can get over that conditioning and that like dumbing down or squashing down or quieting down or subduing our emotions because they're too much, if we can get past that and recognize the power that is in our ability to feel that deeply and realize that that makes us super powerful manifestors. I also want to excuse the fact that I have a plastic water bottle. I generally have a glass one that I refill. I don't have it with me here at this current place that I'm staying, so I am sorry, sea turtles.
But you do recycle.
I do recycle. If that even helps, I don't even know anymore. One of the things that I've been working on to do with feminine energy, I've been processing it with a friend of mine. We go through, like, we share a lot of our spiritual journey together, and he, brilliant man, helps me process through a lot of this stuff and has these insights that I would never come to on my own. So I appreciate him. We were talking the other day about a specific energy that I carry that elicits certain other reactions in other people, being super vague, but I have a very, like, it's a very strange but natural sensual energy that some people pick up on. And I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm not being flirty. I'm just existing, and it hits people in an odd way sometimes. And so we are talking about that. I'm like, I don't like this fact because I feel like I can't just be myself and just can't just interact or connect with people because it's going to be taken the wrong way, which is not new to me. That's not a special thing just to myself. Like that happens to women all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But for this weird energy, which I think a lot of women carry, there's these people that respond that way, like people in my past have responded this way. And there's people in my life now responding this way. And it is like this weird attraction, like this like intense sexual attraction. I'm like the biggest dork ever. Like, why? What do you what are you doing? What are you hoping to accomplish here? And I don't like it because I want to be friends with people. I want to connect with people, but I don't want it to always be taken sexually. And I know that that's a common thing for women. That's not unique unto me. So I'm talking to him. I'm like, how do I don't understand why this happens. And he carries a similar energy, but it causes people to, like, he carries a very masculine energy that is like go out and change the world, and he gathers like people naturally to him that want to make a difference, or his energy makes people want to make a difference, which is a masculine creative energy. The female is a natural creative energy, but it's to go internal and to connect with yourself and into your emotions and your intuition and stuff like that. And today, men aren't, they're not really taught how to go inward. A lot of them, I mean, a lot more are in touch and woke and stuff like that, but on the regular, men don't know how to internalize, how to like, or they know how to internalize, but like they don't know how to go within and to connect to their emotions and their intuition and their empathy and stuff like that. And so when they meet a woman that carries a strong feminine energy, which is what it is, and it is a feminine creative energy, just like how when people connect to my friend who has the creative masculine, they're like, oh yeah, I want to do big things and I want to change the world and I want to do that, this and that. That's his normal reaction from people. And my normal reaction is this intense sexual energy or attraction or awkwardness. And so, but what it is that men don't know when they feel that. They're not interpreting it as like, oh, I should look inward into my spirituality and connect with myself, because that's what the energy was really saying. They really only know how to interpret that as sex, as sexual energy. Sexual energy is a legitimate thing. It is a very powerful creative energy. It is always present. There's always sexual energy. And it could be attraction or it could be repulsion, or there's always that checking in with yourself about the sexual energy between you and everybody, whether you act on it, whether it's appropriate, whether it's like it, but it's always a common thing. And people interpret sexual energy as just sex or wanting to fuck or whatever, but it isn't. It is an energy, just like the divine feminine and masculine. It is, and it's super powerful creatively too. So this doesn't happen with all men. And the men that it doesn't happen with are the ones that are in tune with themselves and are in touch with their emotions and their intuition. They're super spiritual guys that like I'm really good friends with, and it can just stay at that level. But because of my digging into spirituality, and that's kind of the thing that I carry in this world, it's causing this misinterpretation with men, and it's just being interpreted as sexual. And I do wonder, like this was my friend came up with, like, put this together for me, and we were both like, holy shit, that makes so much sense. And so he's, you know, verbally processing through this just brilliant insight. And I do wonder how many exchanges like that, like catcalling obviously is its own, it's whole other world there, but how many men are interpreting strong female energy just into sexual energy, or how much different the world could operate or be, or the relationship between men and women would be if they knew how to interpret that energy as anything other than, or if they were more in touch with their feminine side, their divine feminine, essentially, because they're conditioned as well. Like, boys don't cry, boys are strong, boys like sports, boys like this, and there's such a squashing of their female and their divine feminine that it's causing a lot of the turmoil, I think, that we see in many areas of our society, in my opinion. The end.
No, it makes so much sense that especially the ones like take catcalling for an example, that's coming from a very unevolved person, where it's that low vibrational energy. And if you dig into those men, if
It's
you
good.
if you talk to them or see things that they post in the communities of like-minded individuals like that, it's a common thread. Like they're the kind of like boys don't cry, suppress, where that toxic masculinity comes in and having that, I keep going back to low vibrational energy. So yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, and there are definitely low vibrational women as well. But for sure, men need access. Like I feel like they need permission to dig into their divine feminine, and that it doesn't make them weak or sissies or less of a man. A friend of mine was assessing me and the boy. Like he was saying that the way that I am feminine, because I'm very much a woman, but I do it in a very masculine energy. And that's true. Like I'm very assertive. I'm very outgoing and go getter and get shit done. I'm very logical, and I present my femininity, like the way that I dress, the way that I carry myself is very confident, it's a very masculine energy. But I'm doing womanhood, like I'm doing my version of femininity, and I love being a woman and I'm good at it, but I do it in a very masculine energy. And what the fuck are we calling them? The boy?
This boy is yours.
This
He's
boy.
this boy,
This
and mine can
boy.
be dat boy. Dis and dat.
This boy, he's a wonderful example. He's a wonderful example of a man in the very healthy sense of the word. All of the healthy ways to be masculine, he's very good at, and he doesn't have, that I've discovered yet, any toxic traits of masculinity. The good old boy, tough stuff, like talk shitty about women to make themselves feel cool or with the boys or whatever. He is not that type, but he is an amazing specimen of a man, but he does it in a very feminine energy. He's very intuitive. He is very in touch with his emotions and his intuition and his spirituality in a really powerful way. And so it's really cool that we're both kind of good specimens of our gender, but with the opposite energy, done in the opposite way. Obviously, he has divine masculine and I'm divine feminine as well, but the way we present our gender is switched.
Different topic, but something that kind of clicked as slightly different topic, but relating to what you were saying, how you outwardly present. Your rising is fire, which is a masculine sign. It's Sagittarius. And so that's a masculine. And he's got two of his big three are water. So that the water is the feminine. So that would make sense that outwardly that's how that would be presented, but internally it's resides in the way that it's intended.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, and my son is fire also.
Mm-hmm.
So two of my three are fire.
Which we'll get into astrology and we'll have an expert come on and talk more about that in detail.
Yeah.
I'm an amateur at best.
We're both fairly low energy tonight as we're recording this. We talked about postponing it till we were feeling like, yeah, but this is the reality too of humanity. Like we're not always full of dick jokes or dicks. Maybe. The night is young.
But yeah, the reality is that if we put off recording these episodes for you until we were in a better mood or have more energy or whatever,
you'd get like two.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are divinely human, and that's a beautiful thing, but it also comes with the reality of
eating a box of cookies and turning your brain to shit,
or drinking an entire pot of coffee and having heart palpitations.
What did you do? You drank an entire pot of coffee and have heart palpitations.
Well, I should eat something.
You should eat something. One of the things that I'd like to talk about with the divine feminine, growing up in the Christian church, the feminine is fucking nowhere. There is no example of the divine feminine or women.
Because it all got edited out
pretty much by dudes. right? So it's funny because they're talking about God the Father, Jesus is the Son, and then there's the Holy Spirit, which is just this nondescript entity. And a lot of people now I know now consider Holy Spirit as the female and the feminine. But growing up, that was never talked about. There was no mother. And so Jesus is just like a child of a broken home or something. Like this doesn't make any sense. And so coming into, I don't know what I am now, spirituality outside of religion, and being able to piecemeal my beliefs and find what works for me. The idea, which again goes back to that, like if there's this saying, there's generally like there's fluffy cliche saying, there's generally something bigger and more substantial behind it. Mother Earth, like mother or the feminine is matter, and the divine masculine is logic or spirit, essentially. But it's logic, and then matter is the feminine. Like God the Father is that non-material spirit entity or consciousness, and in my beliefs created matter. So yeah, matter, the universe is mama. That was something that was hugely missing in Christianity. Like I remember telling you last year or something, like, holy shit, like matter is our mother. And like I'm not a product of a broken home. Like
Yeah,
we're
that was a big epiphany for both of us coming from opposite ends, because I walked away from a more Christian type background, dove full cannonball into the pagan pool, and just completely turned my back on God in the sense of the Father and stuff. And a big part of my 2018 into 2019 was reconnecting with that father energy. And we had a text conversation about this, and you said, we are not the product of a broken home. And so you and I reunited our family with our mom and dad, but coming from different ends of it. So
right.
it's
Like I was
really,
coming with the dad and you were coming with mama.
yeah,
So it's been really cool and a very healing thing. Like I've personally struggled with my gender, not in a full-blown gender identity way. I identify easily as woman. Actually, I won't say as a woman because, or easily, because I remember being a kid and my mom, bless her heart, is super sexist. Like, she'll go to an auto parts store and she will not talk to a female clerk. She'll like ask for a man. I'm like, Mom, you can't, it's 2019. You can't do that anymore. And so I realized that there were strong women out there in my era of growing up, but I was never exposed to them at all. And in me, I feel powerful. Like I feel like I'm meant to be something, and that I have all of these thoughts and these ideas, and I struggled with the fact that I was female because I was presented with this reality that women need to be quiet. Women don't talk, like you don't speak up in church. Your ideas aren't as important. They're not going to be taken seriously. Like all of these things where I'm like, no, I feel this power in me. I know I'm supposed to be powerful, so this doesn't make sense. I don't want to be a girl if my ideas aren't as important, or as, as if my voice isn't as listened to. And so I did struggle with it for a long time. I didn't listen to female preachers. Like I never took them seriously. I I had issues. Like even as a little kid, all of my stuffed animals were male. They were all boys. I don't know. It was this weird thing. It's been a lifelong struggle to really connect with my femininity or my womanness. Not even that I'm super feminine. That's not even what I'm saying. You don't have to be. But to really settle and revel in being a woman has been a struggle. And it's really gotten good and solidified in the last 5 years, I think. Yeah, essentially that, just that I've struggled with it because it was never presented to be a powerful thing.
along the lines of your upbringing with your mom being, well, internalized misogyny being a part of your upbringing with your mom. I love you, Kathy.
No names. Nameless woman from my past.
I love you, Kitty's mom. How's that? divine masculine, divine feminine, all of that terminology, any of that was not a part of my upbringing at all. I was raised mostly by a single mom, and up until I graduated high school, it was you can be anything you want. You're so smart. You're so capable. You are this and this and this. You can do anything you want. We moved to Michigan when after I graduated high school, and probably about 3 months after that, I met my soon to be ex husband and we started dating. It was amazing to me how the switch flipped in my mom. She went from being my cheerleader to encouraging me to go out there and succeed and use my beautiful brain and all this stuff to, oh my God, you need to marry that guy. He can take care of you. He can do this and that. And that at the time, I was in a very vulnerable transitional period of my life. So I just kind of went along with it. I have no regrets, by the way. I love him to pieces. He's my best friend. He's an amazing man. And I'm so grateful for him. But that was fucked up how she changed her tune like that. Going from encouraging me to be a strong, powerful woman to, oh, go get married, have babies, and do all the thing. Nothing is wrong with any of that, but I'm still confused as to why couldn't she have encouraged me to be both?
Yeah.
So I don't know how relevant that is to the divine feminine, but I guess it correlates to what we term as traditional gender roles and something along those lines. I hope this is relatable to others out there.
I get it for sure. Like it's a delicate balance, it seems like, preparing girls to be powerful women, but not squashing natural things.
As we talked about in our first episode, where we seem to focus more on motherhood in terms of the divine feminine, which is a huge part of it. I mean, creation alone. You had mentioned before that some women, it's just so clearly what they were meant for, and they're so amazing at it. And it's just like, oh my gosh. Along those lines, I'm a really fucking amazing wife. Like, I'm really good at that stuff. I'm good at the home front. I have a whole hashtag of hashtag domestic, you know. I love that. And I would welcome that again in my life, the opportunity to be in partnership with somebody to be able to enjoy that. That's been kind of an adjustment for me.
Yeah.
Not exercising so much a part of my domestic goddessness, although I have been renovating and redecorating and furnishing and feathering my nest, so to speak, these last 4 months.
Yeah. I'm not good at it. I'm really not. I think maybe it is the masculine energy. So I'm not sure. I mean, everybody has both, so I'm not sure where it balances out, but it's just not something that I'm naturally happy with doing, or it's not, because there's some women that are fulfilled by that, and there's nothing wrong with it. I envy them because it's still expected of me, but I'm not fulfilled by it in any way. And so I'm expected to do these things and to fill these roles, yet I don't like doing it. And I know there's a reality to that. And like, nobody likes doing dishes or laundry. Somebody might. There's freaks out there. I'm looking at you, whoever you are. But I'm expected to do those things, but it's not fulfilling at all. Again, they're normal parts of humanity, like human living. So somebody has to do it. But.
I wouldn't say that I'm fulfilled by those things, but I do appreciate my talent for it. And I do take pride in, and I am a very nurturing person. So I take pride in having a comfortable, soothing environment to welcome people into. I do derive pleasure, I guess, from when I have people over and they walk in and they're like, but that is also my healer energy too, which is another thing altogether.
Can I poke at something?
Poke me.
Okay. What you just described is being fulfilled by being domestic. Yet there is that conditioning where that's not enough. that if to be fulfilled, you should be changing the world or doing these big fucking things, when it should be enough that you can just rest in the seat of rest, and which is a Christian term. When you find your calling or what you're good at, I'm not saying that being a homemaker is your calling, but when you find something that you're naturally good at and you enjoy, and it brings you joy and peace, and it comes out of you easily, like there is a fulfillment in that, and that should be okay. And I feel like there's this energy of like, well, but no, I'm bigger than that, and there's more important things to me. And of course there are, because you're amazing, but that is an amazing part of you. That is, there's nothing wrong with feeling fulfilled by that. And that is part of that, like, oh, but women aren't enough because you just are a homemaker. Like, you provide this cocoon of nurturing energy, and the healer is feminine. It is a feminine energy to be that healer. So like, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
I would say, to me, fulfilled means complete,
Mm-hmm.
and that alone is not enough to fulfill me, to fulfill all that I am. I also do want to have an impact on the world, even if it's in a small way. So I do seek to have some success outside of the home, professionally speaking.
And I don't mean to suggest that you should feel fulfilled completely. Like, there's generally not one single thing that completely fulfills anybody. So I was just poking at the, like, we should be allowed to just say, I'm really good at this. Yes, it's a completely girly thing, quote unquote girly, but I'm really fucking good at it. Like, I'm amazing at it. And you should be able to be proud of that without feeling like you have to have those caveats. And like, I understand, like, there's big life-changing things and masculine things that aren't completely fulfilling in a life. There's different facets to each human anyway. But yeah, so I didn't mean to like minimize those parts of you. I just wanted to kind of exalt and offer more allowance for the parts of you that are super domestic, but you rock that shit. You're like, I know. That's all I'm saying.
I'm the person people run to. I have a friend, I can name names. Hey, Kirsten. She and I have been friends since she was 11 and I was 12. So we're going on 23 years now. And since we were kids, my house is where she would escape to. She would, something was going on. I'd get a call. Hey, I'm driving to you. I'll be there in 6 hours or something like that. So I do appreciate me for being that person for people.
Yeah. I've, like, in this past year, like, you were that place for me on numerous occasions. I'm like, you know what? I don't really even need to talk. I just need to not be here, and I would prefer to be there, because it is a very nurturing energy. So, word. One of the things too, that this is another, going back to religion a little bit, I just recently found out, because I have no real experience with Jewish theology or Judaism. A little bit just in my learning in Christianity, the kind of the difference between, but I just found out this past summer that Judaism is like rife with divine feminine and divine masculine and sacred sexuality and all of these crazy things where I'm like, what? And so I was going to learn about that stuff with a Jewish person, but he ended up being a supervillain. And so I blocked him from my life and burned it. So that was that's another story. But anyway, I didn't know that they had that. So the divine feminine wasn't always cut out of religion, or at least, Christ. Well, Judaism isn't Christ-based. Duh, that's the point.
I was just going to say that the excising of the divine feminine from Christianity, sorry to say, one of the people responsible for that is my ancestor, King James Stewart.
Sorry. Bastards. All of you. Your plaid or something.
Yeah, I love plaid.
Just teasing. Another part of the religious side of that, in the Bible, and I'm not going to go into the Bible all the time, but this is applicable to our conversation currently. So in the Bible, it says we were created in his image, male and female. And then later on, and so everybody's interpreting that as like, oh, he made Adam and Eve. No, he made us in his image, male and female. And then like a chapter later, or verses and verses later, I don't know how the Bible works, it says that he created Adam and Eve. So he created us both. Everybody has male and female. The other part of the biblical theology is that it says stuff like, women shouldn't speak in church. Women should be submissive to their husbands. These types of things that are taken literally, when the Bible is types and shadows. They're metaphors for a lot of things. There are like real realm, physical realm applications to a lot of it. But when they're talking about the female in the Bible, they're referring to the soul. And the male is your spirit. And so when they're talking about women shouldn't speak in church, that you shouldn't speak from the soul, which is your personality, which is and spirit is being divinely led or spiritually, and like being led by spirit. So like the Spirit of God should be who's talking in church, even if it's coming through a man or a woman. It should be the Spirit of God, not your soul, which is your personal identity. The spirit being like supreme consciousness. And so when it's talking about women submitting to their husbands, your soul should submit to your spirituality. You as a person should submit to your higher spirituality. It's essentially what they're saying. So when you're reading through the Bible, if you put on those lenses of seeing the divine or the wife or the woman as your soul and the man or husband as spirit, it changes the context of a lot of that stuff. So I don't know how that relates to selling your daughter for camels. I don't know, but sell your soul for camels. But it was interesting. And that actually changed. That was the beginning, like understanding that, which was the same friend that helped me work through that stuff. Understanding that part of the Bible, being brought up in Christianity, understanding that one aspect was what started my reconnecting to my feminine and starting to be okay with being a woman. Like, oh, holy shit. Like I'm not this subpar species because I have a vagina. That was really cool for me. That helped my mindset and my outlook on myself and my calling and all that other stuff. It was very pivotal for me. So maybe that will help someone else. We're going to close out this episode tonight. Thank you for joining us. If you guys have any questions for us about this topic or any other topics that you, for some odd reason, want our opinion on, we would love to give it to you. You can submit those questions either via email at waywardsisters@gmail.com, or where you can submit a comment under this video if you're watching us on YouTube. We're also on Facebook, Waywyrd Sisters, FKA Rocks Incendia, which is our retired dance company, just so our old friends can find us. And we're also on Instagram, Waywyrd Sisters, no punctuation, just straight up. Next week, we're going to be talking about normalizing sexuality. Why isn't it normal? It's definitely catching, like it's gaining traction, I think. But I'm excited to talk about my own journey with normalizing my own sexuality to myself. And you say something.
It'll be interesting to talk about that topic coming from our different backgrounds and how sex has been a part of the last, however many years of our lives in different ways. And that's why we have a wank count.
We have very different sexual histories. So the view has a good broad scope, although we have similar views of sex. I think we're both there, but we have different backgrounds. So We'll see what comes up. Hopefully boners.
Lots and lots of boners.
Like a garden of boners. How would you plow that field, Dom? Thump, 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 thump.
I was going to say bounce, 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 bounce.
Right? Like leapfrog. This is terrible. I
Now we're perking up. Thank you all for listening. We love you. And
I'll see you next week.